Hello, Something Guys and Gals, this is Something Guy 912. After covering another TF2 map and releasing a completely different subject matter of video altogether, we are right back to covering Half-Life 2 maps, starting right off into the first map of the Route Kanal chapter, D1_Canals01. Also of note is that this will be done with the Anniversary Edition in mind, which won't make meaningful changes to the architecture as this series is primed to do, but regardless is something I want to clarify when tackling Half-Life 2 going forward. Speaking of clarification, again, this series is all about me tackling map design in terms of realism of architecture, not based on gameplay, although, with the Route Kanal chapter, there will be moments of architecture in relation to NPC placements that will be sprinkled aplenty throughout. But needless to say, I'm scrutinizing this all based on how realistic this would all be. With that out of the way, let's root out this canal. Alright, and now we have transitioned back from where we left off. Before we run down here, as I mentioned or alluded to from the, I guess I can't go back, alluded to from the previous map, there's this extremely long, winding, civilian service tunnel thing. I think it's a little bit inexplicable how long and deep this goes, considering this was supposedly blocked off from the fence earlier. I've been to Portland, Oregon as an example, and there are these civilian tunnels that usually go under highway bridges, but they're not exactly this long. Especially given that we were already underneath the road bridge here, which will also be important for some other things regarding the architecture later on. So we'll go run down here. There's a reason I have these satchels too, because I don't want any drama between this, even though I have no targets set off. And it's just funny to just blow them all up like that. But something that is interesting, and I've been constantly alluding to this, is another example of art architecture in relation to these NPCs. So, as you can tell, there are no other doorways or whatnot. So we have this doorway with these set of boards. Now, if you remember, before we transitioned into this map, there was another fence gate with boards on that side too. So the implication is these four NPCs, oh, I guess they disappeared, but these four NPCs either went around the boards or they put them up themselves. And I don't know why they would do either one of those things, but it's just funny to think of the implications behind that. So regardless, we'll go up. We're going to ignore the officers. Obviously, I have no target set on. We'll run up here, and obviously this shot is pretty iconic. Obviously, it's even part of the icon for the chapter in of itself, because it gives you a really good shot of the Citadel, and obviously the dev commentary also mentions the showing off the ragdoll system. But if you pay a little bit more attention to this stairway, you'll also notice that for some reason, despite this being kind of like a one-path stairway from where it, came off from, it's completely beset by a bunch of fence linings around here and buildings for some reason. I don't know what this would have served before the Combine came here. It's really hard to really figure out what this the purpose of this civilian service thing goes to, especially given what's ahead of it from this point. I'm hoping I don't accidentally trigger the train to arrive. I hope I don't if I go out of bounds here. I'm assuming the trigger is once you go out of the I'll just show you, go out this little doorway here towards these set of stairs. So we'll go out here, and as you can see, it's not particularly well modeled because obviously you can't see it, but this trainway and these set of rails that are above the trainway would not make sense in accordance with what we understand from the previous map, especially all this these huge complexes outside, because if you remember, it was just a road that was above the set of rails from D1 train station 01. and they would be essentially colliding with these rails here, because if we go out of bounds, you can see that's like, this is where we start off from the transition point, and I believe if I was to kind of eyeball it, I think the road would have been like right here, roughly. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily cut in with here, but obviously it's not in the least way tangible with this, which is interesting because if we go out here, there is like some semblance of like what could have been the road from the previous map, but it's way off here, as opposed to where it likely would have been like somewhere around here. Another thing too is, if this is like the platform from these stairs to get up here, why are there like windows like here and here that are like almost at ground level, despite the fact that this is all like just concrete? Just concrete, baby. And another thing too that's odd is, like, I don't even know what you would call this, like a support beam, catwalk, archway thing. Like they're patterned throughout this section of the railway. There'll be some more over here, but those at least make a little bit more sense as opposed to this, which is almost like a square. And obviously this part is only here just to make it so you don't go past this point, or essentially fail trying to jump on top of the train. And speaking of, we'll go to that. So run down here, and obviously, oh, I need to get over here. How do I get over here? Oh, there's a train to come in. And interestingly, this train is almost one for one the same train that was chasing us back in D1 train station 06. Down to the fact that it's, you know, obviously not detailed on the front here. And I think even the train cars are basically one for one the same. Maybe a little bit longer in comparison, but it is almost like eerily similar. So, you know, obviously the puzzle here is we gotta jump from this platform to jump on this platform, but as you can tell, these set of ladders do not reach to the floor here. So it kind of beggars belief that these set of ladders would be only partially down, as opposed to all the way down. It's not even like there's a second set of ladders that haven't been collapsed down to give the sense that it hasn't been collapsed down to the base here, because, you know, there are like ladders that do that in like New York, like street alleyways and whatnot. I mean, I've taken enough pictures of these kinds of ladders to know. Going on, we will go up and go into this house, which, as best as I can tell it, looks like something that was in the middle of construction, but obviously halted as a result of everything that's going on with the Combine. But the thing that always kind of struck as odd to me is that, so this was in construction, and it's in construction in the middle of all these industrial buildings, fences and whatnot, with only one entry being this platform. So I don't know what the hell this building would have served. I don't know if it's supposed to be... Oh shit, I did that shit again. I don't know if it's supposed to be, you know, something for the train line, possibly, like a conductor's station or whatnot, or if it was supposed to be a civilian house. Because obviously it's not finished in the slightest. So moving on, we'll go through here. There'll be Combine that'll show up there. And, you know, you have to jump up from this broken part of the fence line. And another thing that's also odd is, again, why are they shooting at? There's nothing to shoot at this time. There's no Barney that's saying, "Hey, Gordon," a million times. I don't know what they're... Oh, maybe they're shooting flares. Anyway, so you have these fences here that are also just kind of spattered about like higgledy-piggledy, even though they probably wouldn't be if this was somehow, like, for some reason in the middle of construction. And if they were, I feel like they'd probably make it so this section was also fenced off. So yeah, it's just, again, a procession of just wanting you to go around this whole thing. And we run here, and obviously you have these combine that show up from the other side of the rails to shoot at you. And as another example of the odd architecture in relation to NPC placement, if we go onto this other side, as you can tell, there is basically no way, not even a conceivable way, there's not even like just a random door model for them to come out from this side. They just appear. Like, you know, even this fence line doesn't even give them that much credit. So that's just another funny thing about that. And then we'll run over here and come across the notorious human-sized vent, as I alluded to in, I believe it was D1_train station 05, that, you know, the vents that we saw in there were about as realistic as it's going to get. So we'll go through here, and as it's pretty plain to see, this vent is not venting anything. And this was basically alluded to in the Freeman's Mine series, Freeman's Mine 2.
It's not venting anything! You're supposed to leave me in some warehouse where I can sneak out the other side, not back into the fire!
So, going on from that, beyond the fact that this section is not, you know, not really venting anything, there is a small piece of vent that goes up here, and then obviously it's not textured, but this vent couldn't possibly exist because if we clip out here, it ends at what is supposedly a window to some warehouse. So, yeah, that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense, but yeah. And then also, as a result of this vent not venting anything, it kind of calls into question why this fence is here or this fence is here if it's really not doing anything in the slightest. Like, this vent's not doing anything, this fence isn't really blocking anything. So yeah, it's just more oddities in that regard. So we'll run over here. Obviously you gotta jump down, hit the pallet so you don't take fall damage. Run out here, there'll be more, you know, silver protection that'll jump us. You know, he does the flaming barrel thing. I'm just gonna, you know what, actually, just for my own sake. Just for fun, right? So we have, we go up here, and there's, I think this is like, I think it's like a aqueduct or some kind of, undercroft, as best as I can describe it, to allow, like, I don't know, workers or people to go from one side of the rail to the other safely. And the thing that always kind of caught my curiosity is this side, the right side, has these, like, full floor windows. But the other side just has these, like, shoddy rails. No windows. And not to mention, this side has basically no way to get to this side. That side has a set of, you know, stairs, but this side, you just have to drop down. I mean, there's a door here, but I don't know if the door would have been able to, like, have a way for you to get down here, because there's not a door that is textured at this point. Also, I think as a result of me setting the game to no target me, I have probably missed the trigger for when the Combine Razor comes through here. There'll be another one that'll show up, but there will be a little bit of a funny quirk of it appearing, because, as you can tell, this train's still here. Anyway, we run out here. We can't go past this point. There should be some CP officers that jump us, and we have to jump across here. Now, before I go into this, here it comes. And this is kind of an amusing discovery from me just testing, but watch, just watch. We're just gonna watch and enjoy. And as you can tell, it stopped because I set the game to no target me, and it has broken the sequence because there's another Combine Razor that shows up that drives through here, and if you look very closely, this train disappears, just straight up disappears. So this would have collided with this if this didn't just get disappeared from, like, out of view or out of your immediate view. Anyway, so we'll just clip out there because it's going to make a bunch of noise. So we have these out of bounds, we have these catwalks that lead into these curious, I don't know, orange-roofed buildings. Now, these are mostly cohesive. The first two are, I would say, but the other two, the main problem is, if you can tell, there's a fenced doorway here, but the last two do not. It's just a fence, so there's basically no way for anyone to get here. And same with this one. Another thing I also find curious, too, about the first one that you know, supposed to jump off from so you don't get hit by the train is it does not share the qualities that the other three have with the orange-roofed house or the signal switches. But, I mean, I guess the last one doesn't have the signal switch, so you could posit that it wouldn't really make sense to put a service switch here near, you know, this archway. And as I mentioned before, there's these weird archways. I don't know what they're supposed to service. So now we will drop down into the canal. And from the back, there's like this half-pipe thing that looks like it's essentially endless, but no, it's not endless. It does end. It's just unusually long and obviously leads to nothing. Again, I think that was probably just more of a compromise from the devs to make it seem as though it's endless, but not. So we'll go through here, and there's a lot of junk, boxes, I did it again, boxes, what have you. And interestingly, there's a boat, a destroyed boat, and I feel like this boat being here, like, sure it's a showcase of the engine, but I feel like it's a little bit tacky, because, okay, yeah, there's water, but who would in their right mind actually swim in this? Because you also have to remember, these like beams are broken off. So if this was like pre-war, before the Combine showed up, they were probably like perfectly formed. So there wouldn't be a lot of like swimming you would be able to do in here. So it's just funny. But I mean, there's a lot of other very odd structures here. I mean, most notably of all is when we go past this point, we have this train car. A train car that is perfectly parallel with the catwalks. Don't ask me how the hell this train car got here, considering what's around it. Like, did the Combines just like dumped it here somehow, and it just landed in such a perfect formation on top of just that ladder being there too? I mean, some train cars do have ladders, but they're not jutting out like this. They're usually like embedded around the stretch of the train car. And speaking of, like I said, there's going to be a whole lot to say about this, but this is near the level sequence. And then, you know, you have these two jokers. I'm just going to blow them up because it's just funny that way. And then we go out, and this is about where the level transition will end. So that is basically the last thing that I have to say about D1_Canals 01. And that was that for D1_Canals 01. As I said, this map had a lot of meat on its bones for all the intricacies that I could discover from its map design. And there will be plenty more where that came from with the subsequent maps in the Canals section, so stay tuned.